Chapter 12. After reaching the main thoroughfare, Jimmy weaved his way in and out of the few abandoned cars in the street. He made a couple of turns and reached State Road 146, one of the three major highways that intersected the valley. As the city limits drew near, Jimmy noticed a sheriff's SUV hiding around a bend. He took a long look as he passed, but was unable to see whether or not it had an occupant. "I guess if they pull out and start following me, I'll have my answer." He passed without incident, but realized that he had to make a decision. Do I ditch the car and get my four-wheeler back? Or do I keep it and go back home? Jimmy's internal debate tore at him as he drove along. He maneuvered around the roadblock that had sent him scurrying home days ago and past the driveway that almost led to his death, still debating. The chaos of Karst Valley had died down to complete serenity, and Jimmy watched the rolling hills fly by in a daze. Less than a mile before his turn down Walnut Ridge Road, the road he lived on, Jimmy hit the brakes, coming slowly to a stop. What's more important? What will be the better tool for me? Jimmy had weighed all of his options and made a decision. While the police car was faster than most due to the improved engine, tuned for performance, it was far from stealthy. It stood out like a sore thumb amongst other vehicles. He also considered the fact that if the government was able to get everything back under control, he could be looking at serious crimes for having a stolen police vehicle. Jimmy decided that his best course of action would be to stow the car away somewhere in the secluded woods. He could use it as a resource some other time if he needed it. He accelerated until he turned onto his country road and soon found his way behind a grove of dense cedar trees. Saplings and brush crunched and grinded against the underside of the carriage. Jimmy prayed that the noise did not draw unneeded attention. The nearest house, as far as he remembered, was approximately a quarter of a mile away, and he hoped the semi-dense forest would mask his actions. Grabbing the keys from the ignition, he threw them into the visor and hopped out of the car, scanning the area for signs that he had given himself away. After he was satisfied that his secret agent skills had kept him concealed, Jimmy made his way through the ankle-deep snow. Walking around the car, he opened the trunk with some struggle. Inside, he found a Colt CR 6920 EPR, an AR-style 16-inch carbine with a worn black finish. As he marveled at it, he noticed that it had a 30-round magazine secured in the magazine well, a red dot sight, mounted flashlight, basic vertical foregrip, and two-point padded sling looped through the stock. He quickly slung it over his back and rummaged through the rest of the trunk, finding a spare magazine and a couple boxes of 5.56 ammo. Slamming the trunk, he fumbled his new supplies into the snow. Picking them up quickly, he opened the passenger side door. Stuffing his new goods into the backpack that was tossed carelessly onto the floorboards, he flung it over a shoulder. Jimmy thrashed around, trying to keep the rifle slung while situating the backpack. After his momentary struggle, he strode deeper into the woods to put distance between himself and the car. Once it was barely visible, he stopped, took a knee, and observed his surroundings. I should have checked the time before I left the car. I'm going to stay put here for at least 5 minutes. Give the woods and my senses time to settle down. I should go cover those tracks that the car left in the snow. But how? He wondered. Suddenly, the roar of an engine could be heard in the distance. Jimmy froze, his heart pounding quicker with every second that passed. He got into the prone position, laying down and making himself as small as possible. As the vehicle drew closer, he caught glimpses through the trees of a bright red diesel truck approaching. "Please pass by. Jesus, please let this truck pass," Jimmy prayed as the engine began to rev down. He started to crawl backwards, as stealthily as possible. It didn't work well in the snow, but the human mind plays tricks on your hearing. Jimmy began to panic. His breathing quickened. His heart beat through his chest and took over his hearing. He heard a door shut and feet hit the ground. His entire physiology changed and his senses were suddenly heightened. He became laser-focused as the adrenaline coursed through his veins. Another truck door shut, and another set of feet began to step across the pavement. "What is that?" a voice rumbled, deep and commanding. "Looks like a cop car. Tracks look pretty fresh, too," came the reply, marked with a slight southern twang. Jimmy had continued to create distance between himself and the voices, and the woods had enveloped his view to the point where he could no longer see the car or those who were investigating. Hearing the crunch of the snow, Jimmy listened as the original voice said, "Looks like there are footprints that lead into the woods. Someone stole this cop car and took off. Couldn't have been much more than a few hours ago at most. Think we should follow them?" The second voice, clearly younger and more inexperienced, asked. "I don't know. We have to at least see where they were going. We don't have to go far." "And what are we going to do if we find them, Greg? Shoot them?" "That depends. If you're too scared to find out, that's fine. You just stay there, but I'm going in after them." Jimmy didn't stick around to hear any more. He pushed himself up to a knee, and in a tactical crouch, he began to run in a stooped position, trying to keep a low profile. Jimmy knew that he had the advantage of the deep woods for concealment and a head start. He also knew that he didn't have the strength for a gunfight, nor the stamina to sprint for very far. The day had been too long and stressful. He stood straight up and began to sprint through the snow. He only cared about putting as much distance between him and his possible pursuer. In his younger years, Jimmy had learned how to push the body slightly past the brain's breaking point, but he had never prepared himself for a situation like this. Lungs on fire, heart pounding, legs burning. He finally stopped. He hid himself on the backside of an old, healthy oak tree. He sat down, tucked his knees to keep his silhouette as small as possible, and waited. He continuously peeked his head out past the bark, watching and trying to listen over the sound of his own breath. He once again longed for his watch. Pausing for about 15 to 20 minutes, he noticed that the sun was long past the horizon, the woods becoming difficult to navigate. Satisfied that he was no longer being pursued, Jimmy realized that he was completely lost for the second time that day. He tried to control his breathing and take a minute to reorientate, but with fading daylight, he knew that he had to find the highway and get back to the farmhouse to carry out the final chapter of his ridiculous plan.